Alright, making this video to do a review on ROEHL Transport and their Get Your CDL program. I'm currently working for ROEHL. I've been here for a year, and that includes my training before I was a solo driver. I've been here for 1 full year. So I made a little list of things to go through and talk about. Hopefully I can keep this pretty quick. So in my research, I came up with the companies that would train me, and in that list I had ROEHL and Prime and Maverick and TMC, and Maverick was my first choice, but Maverick took a long time to call me back, and by the time that they actually called me, I had already moved forward with ROEHL being my a close second choice, mainly because of the training times. I wanted to get solo as quick as possible, and ROEHL was one of the fastest to get you solo. The recruiting department was top notch. I mean, they called me the same day when I made the application and whatnot, and they got everything rolling, and it was real smooth, and they knew all the information. They weren't wrong about anything. They didn't lie or finagle the numbers or anything. It was all straight. The contract is a bit high. It's $7,000 and 120,000 miles. But to me, when I first signed up, it didn't really matter because I had planned to stay at least a year at a company, and I figured I could do 120,000 miles in that year, and I haven't. I've been here a year. That's with the 4 weeks of training, 3 weeks of over-the-road training, and then your solo after that. So in 10 months, I've done 80,000 miles, which is not very good. But it's partly to do with me. I value home time more than money or miles. So I'm always trying to get home on like a Thursday morning so that I get that technical Thursday. It doesn't count against me. And then I get Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, and I'm home every 2 weeks. Sometimes I'll choose to stay out 3 weeks, but that's only because we have like a trip planned at that particular date. So I stay out the extra week. So when you start, they put you up in a hotel. It's kind of, dingy. The food kind of sucked, but that had a lot to do with COVID and whatnot. But it's a free hotel, and you do share a room. My roommate was great. I didn't have any issues there. I drove from Fort Worth, Texas, up to Gary, Indiana, where I did my training. And that was a good choice because I had my car here, and I was able to just, run around a lot in my own vehicle. Either that or I would have flown and rented a vehicle, but a rental car for a month would be expensive. What I would have done differently would have been, after 2 weeks, I ended up flying home, and it cost me like $300 or $400 for the flight. But knowing, when I was coming to training, if I would have went and bought 4 tickets, one for each weekend, and flown home after Saturday at 12 when they let you out of that last little class, I would have been able to spend every weekend home. It's only a 2-hour flight, and the flights would have cost like $100 or $130 a piece round trip. So it would have been $400 or $500, and I would have been home every weekend. And that would have been much better. The training here is great. I mean, it's company training, so they definitely want you to succeed. And by succeed, I mean be a good driver, a good, safe driver. So they go over all the bases. It's not just getting your CDL. They're actually trying to make you into a good driver because it benefits them, and you're going to be driving for them and their company. That's part of the reason why I chose a company training rather than go and pay $3,000, $4,000, maybe $5,000 and get my CDL elsewhere, because they at those schools typically they don't really care if you're a good driver. They care if you can pass your CDL test, and a lot of times they don't even care about that because they got their money, and it's just no. Contract's not that bad because realistically, if you're going to stay a year at a company, you're going to be set up really nicely to go to any company you want after that. So you should stay a year at your first job regardless. If I had it to do over again, though, I would choose Maverick. Maverick was my first choice. I think I just went off topic. The 4-week training, it was good. I'm not going to get into all that. I mean, other people can, whatever. You're going to get trained in 4 weeks. Ours got pushed to 3 weeks. So they actually finished us in 3 weeks, and we did our CDL test on the 3rd week. And then we just kind of not goofed off, but we just did other things for the last week. Other driving things, just kept practicing. I guess they were doing a test to see if they could train everybody in 3 weeks, and we all passed in 3 weeks. But I think it's still a 4-week program. Then over the road training, I had 2 really good trainers. One liked to run resets, so we ran the fuck out of our hours, and the other one liked to run recaps, so it was a lot more chill. We got up at like 7 or 8 each day and ran for a little bit and then put down. Way more chill. The problem with the over-the-road training was that during the COVID thing, I had an issue with getting my CDL down in Texas, so I had to set an appointment, and that appointment was a couple weeks after my over-the-road training was done. So on that Monday, when I was supposed to come here to the Gary terminal and test out before flying home and actually getting my Texas CDL, I think at the time I had So after their 4-week training, they send you home for a week, and then you test to turn your permit into an actual CDL. Well, I had to set an appointment, so I couldn't do that. So I had to do my over-the-road training with just my permit, which was fine, but the date was 2 weeks after the 3 weeks of your over-the-road training. So they ended up keeping me over the road an extra 2 weeks, which I didn't like. So I stayed a little over a month with those 2 trainers, and I didn't like that at all. And what I should have done is just tell them to fuck off and found my way home from Gary that Monday instead of going out with the next driver. I just, at the time I just wasn't sure what to do, but I should have. They what are they gonna do? Fire you? No, just go home and tell them, hey, I'll be back when I get my CDL. Not that any other person would go through that. It's just a kind of special circumstance that I had to endure. But my over-the-road trainers were great. So moving on, the freight that you'll run the most, I did flatbed. That's why I say Maverick. So I wanted to do flatbed because from flatbed you kind of have a stepping stone to go anywhere you want. If you get dry van and you try to go be a car hauler next, they probably won't hire you because you need flatbed and securement experience for most of those jobs. So I really wanted a flatbed company to train me and get my CDL. That was the other thing. So I got paid to get my CDL. So $500 a week and then 600 something while you're over the road training. So I didn't have to pay $4,000 out of pocket and then be out of work and with no income for 3 weeks during training. That's the other benefit of having a company train you is you get paid during that training. But the freight you're going to run on the flatbed here is typically lumber, some steel, but nothing really interesting. I have, I've hauled a couple of interesting things like some combine attachments once. Hay, something else you run. It's not really what I thought. Being a flatbed, I thought I would haul some cool shit, and not really. Most of it's just general flatbed freight, which is another reason to choose Maverick, because I see on their trucks they haul cooler stuff. Usually when I see a Maverick truck, a lot of the times they're hauling the same stuff as us, but I do see some cooler stuff on their trucks more often, I guess. The terminals that I've been to are pretty good. Gary, the one in Wisconsin, and Grand Prairie is my home terminal. Grand Prairie is a really small terminal. It's only got 2 showers. It's just real small. It's basically a drop yard, but it's still a terminal. Gary is the one you'll probably spend the most time running through. It's like a central hub almost, even though they're based out of Marshfield. Gary seems like you'll end up hitting it a lot. They do got some good food here at Gary. I like the kitchen here. And then their terminals, except for Grand Prairie, I don't think Grand Prairie has a courtesy car. So Gary and Wisconsin, Marshfield, they have courtesy cars, which is cool. You know, you get here, and then if it's available, you can go drive and go to Walmart or something. That's really cool. Average miles per load. So for the first 6-7 months, I put it all in a spreadsheet, and I averaged 730 miles per load. But part of the reason that I chose a northern company like ROEHL was because I figured their lanes are going to be hot up here, which I was right. Usually my load out of the house is 1,000 miles. It's straight up to Chicago. Usually my load home is 1,000 miles. It's from Chicago back home. That's what I'm about to do right here. That's my next load, is Chicago to Denton or Terrell. So your average miles per trip is going to be about 730, but you'll get some 200 miles, 400 miles, 500 miles really common, and then 1,000 miles is less common, but it all averages to about 700. Fleet managers have been pretty good. I've had 3 like regular fleet managers. The first 2 quit. Both of them quit. Nothing I did or anything. Don't blame me. But they just quit. I guess they didn't like their job. So after your over-the-road training you get a fleet training manager, and he's basically with you during your over-the-road training with your trainer, and like a month after. And then you're solo and you get a normal fleet manager. So I've had 3 of those solo normal fleet managers. I'm on my 3rd one, and they've all been pretty good. They've all been respectful. I definitely liked the first 2. The first one was probably the best one. I would average 2,600 miles. I don't know if it's a fleet manager's fault or not, but I just seem to average now like 1,800 miles, sometimes up to a 2,400 mile week. And it just seems like it's not being set up correctly for me to make the miles. Like before, I'd get short runs combined with long runs, and it would all work out, and I would just be busting and getting a lot of miles, and now it just doesn't seem to work out as well. For instance, right now, I've sat for 2 days. So they had me on a delivery for Sunday, and I only had 4 hours left on that Sunday. I should have been on a reset that Sunday, but the delivery was scheduled that Sunday, and I couldn't get anybody to reschedule it or anything else. So I had to deliver it and basically waste that Sunday and only use up those 4 hours and then start a reset. So now my reset is officially on the Monday. So I sat all day Sunday and all day Monday. And this is the second time that's happened. But I've been here a year, so that's 2 times in a year. Is I guess not all that bad. You're going to run into issues like that any company you go to. It's just kind of one of those issues. Problems that I've had here, the extra 2 weeks that I did my over-the-road training, I should have just went home from Gary. I should have got an Uber to the airport, bought a ticket, and went home. And if they fired me, they fired me. If they didn't, then I got the extra weeks at home. I didn't care about the money. I wanted to go home, and they wouldn't let me. They wouldn't send me home. They said if I was going to go home, I had to find my own way, and at the time I just didn't have the money to buy a ticket and find my own way home. They should have sent me home. I thought that was pretty wrong of them. Then the second problem I had was they offered me a local job hauling for Klockner, and I was excited about it. I was like, heck yeah. I made $1,500 for the week. Projected $1,500. I only worked 4 days. But I was so excited. I told my kids, I was like, I'm going to be home more often now. And then after that week, they were like, no, we messed up. It's not a permanent thing. We're going to have to switch you back to national. And I was like, heartbroken about it. And so were my kids, That kind of sucked. Then there was a more recent issue. They had me doing a delivery on a Tuesday. I was running low on hours, but I had enough hours to where I could drive home and to the terminal, my home terminal, and do my reset there. And either way, I was going to do reset. It was either going to be on Sunday in Oklahoma, or it was going to be Monday at the terminal. And then my delivery was like 20 miles from that terminal. And so I was like, hey, I got the hours. I'm going to do the reset on that Monday at the terminal. And then I'll deliver Tuesday. Well, on Tuesday, I made the delivery, and then my current fleet manager called me and was like, hey, so when do you want to be home next? And I said, this weekend, because that was my scheduled home time. And he was like, weren't you just home? I said, no, that was just a reset. And he was like, oh, that counts as home time because you reset at your home terminal. I was like, no. And then it got quiet over the phone because I wasn't about to argue with him. And he's like, I can get you home, but you're headed to Arkansas, which was where my next load was headed. And he's like, from there we'll probably bounce you to Chicago and then back home. And I already knew that wouldn't work. And I was like, no, it's not going to work. He's like, with Friday or Saturday getting home, that's what you're looking at. It's like, that's not going to work. But he's like, oh, well, we'll see what happens. I was like, okay, if I got a deadhead from Arkansas, that's what I'm going to do. But I'm going to be home Friday because it was my son's birthday. That's why I was taking that Friday off, and it was a hard Friday. I wanted Friday off. I wanted to wake up, wish my son a happy birthday, take him to school, pick him up early from school, have the day. And so get to Arkansas, then they give me a load headed back to Denton. And then after that, they had another load that I was supposed to pick up on Friday. And I wasn't going to do that. And I had to write him a long message saying, no, I'm not working on Friday. So I headed from where I dropped off in Denton. I just headed straight to the terminal. I wasn't going to do another pickup. I was off on Friday. Hell or high water. And then, the current problem's sitting for 2 days. And this is the second time that's happened. But these are issues that, I could kind of understand. Overall, ROEHL's been a good company. And I wouldn't necessarily steer anybody clear of ROEHL. It's just me personally. I'm just trying to give you a review of my time here at ROEHL. Overall, it's a good company. Great training. And I've had my issues like anybody would have at any job. I am respectful and courteous and professional on the phone with my fleet managers. I've never gotten nasty with them, and they've never gotten nasty with me. But I hear other drivers, the way that they talk to their fleet managers, and I could definitely see how that could cause issues. Why I'm leaving ROEHL is I want to do a lease purchase program, and ROEHL's lease purchase doesn't really make sense because you're at a fixed cents per mile for how many miles you drive, and the most you can make per mile is $1.40 something, and that's with a flatbed. It's doing all that work and everything else, $1.40, and that's kind of a lousy rate. And you don't get to pick from a load board on what you're hauling. You're gonna have to just take. I think it's they give you 3 options of 3 different loads you could take, and you choose which one, and that's about as much choice as you have. And so I'm going to Schneider. Schneider has a load board you choose from. It's like the load board. So they have their normal company drivers that are on more dedicated stuff probably, and the load board is all their extra spot freight, and however that works, whatever. It's a load board. You get a percentage of the rates, which is much better at 65%. And then SFI and Schneider, being sister companies, basically kind of streamlines the process because I can't save for a down payment. So I'm gonna do an SFI lease truck, and I'm actually doing a used SFI lease truck. It'll, with my maintenance account and everything else, I should be able to pay it off in the 70-week term. That's why I'm leaving. I am breaking the contract early, and I'm most likely going to have to pay the full $7,000 of the contract. But if you think about it, $2,000 of that is what they paid me in the first 4 weeks, which I wouldn't have got paid if I went to a school. And if I went to a school, I would have paid $4,000 probably. So there's only a difference of about $1,000 that I'm actually having to pay, contract or no contract, and I've only had to stay here for a year. I'm not really losing, even though I'm breaking the contract early. It would definitely be ideal to finish the contract, and I'm just not really willing to wait that long. I want to get out and do my thing. That's why I'm leaving. And that about sums it up. One more thing, I just thought about it. So when I went solo, after all the training and everything, they flew me to Phoenix to pick up a truck. When I got to Phoenix and I got the truck, it was an older ProStar, and it was wrecked on the side back here behind the door. It was caved in, like they either got hit by a trailer or something, I don't really know. And it was just rough all the way around, and it was a smoker's truck, so it reeked of cigarettes. It was horrible. I had headaches, like I couldn't sleep because it was just such a strong smell. I put dryer sheets in all the vents and the intake vent for the HVAC, and did, put all these like scent things around, and I did everything I could. I'd get out of the truck, and if I had a wind pushing against my back, I could smell all the cigarettes smell on me in the wind. It was ridiculous. That's another thing I would do differently. I would have refused that truck. I should have refused that truck. I had to drive it for about a month, maybe a month and a half, and then they sent me up to Marshfield to get that dent replaced. And they were going to give me a loaner truck, which is the truck I'm in right now. It had like 316,000 miles. It was a year newer, but it was the newer LT body style, so it looked just better. It was totally clean, drove so much better. And basically, while I was putting my stuff in this truck, it was only supposed to be a loaner truck. I called him. I was like, hey, is there any way I could just keep this truck? I don't want to go back to that truck. It smells like cigarettes. It's a shit box. I don't like it at all. They're like, no, it's only supposed to be a loaner truck. And I was like, really? Y'all, can y'all please figure out what y'all can do to keep me in this truck, or just not put me back in that truck? And eventually I got a call back and said, hey, yeah, you can go ahead and keep that truck. So that's how I got into this truck. And it's a much nicer truck. It has now 380 some odd thousand miles. I've done 80,000 miles for the company. So that's how far I am in the contract. And I just don't feel like waiting another 4 or 5 months to fulfill the contract. I'm going to dip out. I'm going to call them and see if maybe we can negotiate a smaller bit to pay back, but we'll see what happens. That's it. That's it for the ROEHL review. So, to kind of summarize, if you're thinking about coming to ROEHL, if you're really looking for flatbed like I was, if flatbed is your goal, I would choose Maverick. My second choice would be ROEHL for company paid training. If you're not specifically looking for flatbed, there's a company based out of Fort Worth, and the only reason I didn't choose them is because I was kind of sketchy about the whole, they don't have a contract. It's Raider Express. They don't have a contract, supposedly. So you do have to run teams with them, I believe. I don't remember. It's been a long time, but it's reefer. And if you're doing dry van or reefer, go ahead and go there. Don't worry about a contract, and do 6 months at least with them. You're going to need to do 6 months at your first company, no matter what. So if you can handle doing teams, and if you're not especially looking for a flatbed company, that's where I would go. Otherwise, I don't know, you'd have to do your own research. If you're kind of like me and you want to be an owner-operator, that's your ultimate goal, maybe Schneider would be a better choice for you, because that is where I'm going for the lease purchase program, and they got a better load board set up for the owner-operators. So maybe that company would be where I would do a contract with if I was a van driver. But yeah, ROEHL would be a second choice for flatbed. If I had to do it all over again, I would definitely wait for Maverick. I would wait until Maverick rejected me, even though that didn't happen. They ended up calling me and they wanted to hire me. I should have jumped when they said it, but I didn't, and I ended up at ROEHL, and it's not necessarily a bad decision or anything. It's just could have done a little bit better, and yeah, that's it. So good luck to you.